Isn't there more? Their gazes locked, and a fierce understanding sparked between them, a silent battle of wills. This was no ordinary conversation. It felt charged, electric, as if the entirety of their histories bled into the stillness around them. Her heart raced, resonating with the rhythmic thump of city life below. More, Ayo echoed softly, his voice carrying a weight that hovered in the cool air. Can you even imagine what that more might look like for me? Khalilah stepped closer, the distance closing as they locked eyes, searching for something unspoken. Let me help you find it. He shifted, the tension radiating off him in waves. For a split second, he seemed as though he might yield, a hint of vulnerability flickering in those dark depths. And what makes you think I'm ready to be helped? Maybe, she said, her pulse thrumming in her ears, because I think you're tired of playing the villain. A shadow of doubt passed through his eyes, but he didn't look away. Instead, he moved even closer, the space between them shrinking until the world fell away, narrowing to just the two of them against the backdrop of the sprawling city. You think I'm the villain, Khalilah? His breath mingled with hers, a warm current that sent a shiver up her spine. For a heartbeat, she saw the man that lay beneath all the chaos, a protector, a dreamer buried under layers of decisions made long before she stepped into his life. No, she whispered, I think you can be so much more. Ayo's gaze softened, the fierce independence he wore like armor unraveling, revealing the complexities beneath. What if I chose to be something else? The moment hung between them, taut and shimmering. Khalilah's heart raced, her breath hitching as his hand reached for hers, fingers brushing against her palm. In that breathless pause, she could feel the promise of something real, something vibrant waiting to erupt. Then let's find out, she whispered, and before any misgivings could settle in, Ayo bent closer. Their lips met tentative at first, like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky, but soon escalating into something deeper, more urgent, igniting the very air around them. It was a collision of fates, an affirmation that they were standing not just in a moment, but on the precipice of everything they had yet to uncover. As the kiss deepened, worlds fell away, leaving only the promise of connection, sustenance against the chaos of their lives. The sound of distant laughter from below draped over the moment like a delicate lace, a reminder that life continued, pulsing around them, even as they approached the edge of understanding. And when they pulled apart, breaths mingling in the damp evening air, Ayo's expression was both vulnerable and fierce. I never thought I could want more, until you, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Khalilah smiled, the weight of his words settling gently in her heart. Then let's chase the more together. Scene 53, Revealing Secrets. The warm, golden light of the setting sun poured through the expansive windows of Ayo's penthouse, silhouetting the skyline of the city beyond. The space was a fusion of elegance and minimalism, accented by rich mahogany furniture and lush greenery, every detail exuding both power and comfort. Khalilah sat on the plush couch, her fingers nervously fidgeting with the fabric of her tailored dress, the weight of her family's secrets pressing down on her like an unyielding force. The aroma of fresh basil infused with garlic wafted from a small pot on the stove in the adjoining kitchen, a reminder of the dinner they had shared just moments ago. Ayo stood near the window, his profile sharp against the backdrop of the cityscape, casting a long shadow across the plush rug. He caught a glimpse of Khalilah in his periphery, the intensity of her gaze fixed on the city below. She was stunning in her vulnerability, the electric energy in the room electrifying and thick like the humidity before a summer storm. Ayo, she finally said, breaking the silence. Her voice was barely above a whisper, vibrating with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. There's something I need to share. Turning to face her, Ayo's brows knitted together in concern. You know you can tell me anything, he assured, his deep voice resonating with a low, velvety comfort. Khalilah took a breath. The scent of the city mingled with the lingering essence of their shared meal, heartwarming and intimate. I've kept my family's past tucked away like a faded photograph in a box, but I can't hide it from you anymore. She met his eyes, searching for understanding amidst the flickering doubts. Ayo stepped closer, the floorboards creaking slightly under his weight. Whatever it is, we can face it together, he said, but the edge in his tone hinted at the storm brewing behind his calm facade. She swallowed hard but found her resolve. It's about my parents and the choices they made. They weren't just ordinary people. My father was involved in things, illegal things. I thought I could control my path, but their shadows loom over me. Every decision I make feels like I'm navigating through their legacy, and I'm terrified of what it means for us. The air in the room crackled with tension as Ayo processed her words, his jaw tightening slightly. Is that why you've kept me at arm's length? Because of their mistakes? Khalilah sighed, the weight of her confession hanging between them. It's not just that. I'm in this world you navigate so effortlessly, and every day I wonder if I'm strong enough to withstand the fallout. She glanced down, feeling the magnetism of the moment pierce through her confidence. What if I end up just like them, involving myself in dangers I can't control? Ayo stepped forward, his hand reaching out, the warmth of it igniting a pulse of something deeper within her. Khalilah, he said, brushing a stray curl behind her ear, his touch gentle yet electrifying. You're not them. You're defining who you are in this moment, not the past. Your family's choices don't dictate your worth. He paused, the intensity of his stare wrapping around her like a protective embrace. Let me help you carry this. Khalilah's heart raced, the rhythm of their shared vulnerability sinking in a way that felt both exhilarating and profound. She glanced up, finally meeting his gaze again, the unspoken bond between them tangible. But what if I put you in danger? He chuckled softly, flashing that disarmingly charming smile that had both captivated and perplexed her. With great power comes great risk, right? But I'm pretty good at dodging danger. It's my specialty. Khalilah felt a hesitant smile tug at her lips. And here I thought you just looked good in a suit. Their laughter danced in the air, easing the tension while deepening their connection. Ayo smiled, leaning closer, the space between them filled with a palpable yearning. I'm not just suits and charm, you know. I'm also your personal guardian against family legacies if you let me. She bit her lip, a mixture of gratitude and intention gleaming in her eyes. I want to let you, she admitted softly, her heart swelling with the possibility of trust and connection. So, what do you say we make this a partnership? Ayo replied, his tone shifting to something more serious, yet retaining an undercurrent of warmth. Partners, Khalilah breathed, feeling the weight of the words settle within her like a promise. Always. The sun dipped beneath the horizon, casting a palette of gold and violet across the sky. In that fleeting moment, with secrets laid bare, they stood teetering on the edge of something raw and uncharted, where hope entwined with promise in a world fraught with shadows. Scene 54, Distant Threats. The air hung thick with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt as Khalilah leaned against the iron railing of Ayo's penthouse balcony. The city sprawled beneath her, illuminated by shifting lights that pulsed like wayward stars. Her heart raced, one part exhilaration from the vibrant life below, and two parts unease simmering within. A gust of wind tousled her hair, and she tucked a stray curl behind her ear. Ayo stepped outside, the dark silhouette of his tall frame filling the doorway. The faint light from inside cast him in stark relief, highlighting the sharp angles of his face, which contorted in frustration. He clutched his phone so tightly in his hand that his knuckles turned white. You shouldn't be out here alone, he said, his voice low and gravelly, underscored by a tension that permeated the night. I can't stay cooped up inside like some damsel in distress, Khalilah replied, crossing her arms defiantly. The rain began to fall lightly, droplets forming small splashes on the tile beneath them, mirroring the growing turbulence in her heart. I'm perfectly capable of handling myself. Capable, maybe, but it doesn't mean I want you to handle danger, Ayo retorted, stepping closer, his gaze piercing at her stubbornness. Those men, I've been hearing whispers. They're getting desperate. Khalilah felt herself bristle. Desperate enough to come after you, she shot back, her voice rising in pitch. What about me, Ayo? I can't just sit around waiting for you to resolve your business. Ayo's jaw clenched at her tone, but beneath the anger flared concern. He stepped right up to her, their faces inches apart. That's not how this works. I didn't choose this life for either of us. I'm trying to protect you. His breath brushed against her cheek, warm and urgent. And what do you think I am? A delicate flower? She gestured towards the bustling street below, the chaos of honking horns and vibrant voices, a stark contrast to the tension brewing between them. I'm not some prize to be kept safe in a gilded cage. He inhaled sharply, the weight of her words settling heavily between them. Khalilah, you don't understand. These are not just men on the street. They play dirty. They don't care about the rules. His voice softened, nearly cracking. I can't lose you. I won't. She looked up, seeing the fierce sincerity in his eyes, and in that moment, the storm of her concerns ebbed. So you think your machismo is going to save me? She teased, a half smile escaping her lips despite the gravity of the moment. You might need a new tactic if you plan to keep me around. A ghost of a smile flickered on Ayo's lips as he shook his head. See, you're impossible. What's life without a little adventure? She countered playfully, inching closer, the city lights casting shadows that danced around them. Yet beneath the lightheartedness, a deeper current pulsed. You can't keep me from the world. Maybe I don't want to, he admitted, a hint of vulnerability breaking through his bravado. But what if it's too late? Khalilah's pulse quickened at his admission. What if it's not? Her hands reached out, brushing his arm, feeling the tension coiling within him like a spring. Their gazes locked, and the air around them electrified. You put me in a difficult spot, Ayo said, the tension giving way to a charged intimacy that hung between them. He hesitated, his voice tinged with anguish. I care about you, Khalilah, but I can't let that distract me from what's coming. Then let me be part of it, she insisted, determination flooding her tone. I want to be here with you, not just waiting on the sidelines. The air thickened with unspoken emotions, the space between them narrowing until all that existed was a flicker of possibility. Khalilah felt the heat emanating from him, safety, desire, madness. Ayo stepped back, running a hand through his hair, frustration mixing with something softer. Khalilah, his voice faltered, teetering on the edge of a precipice neither had dared to approach. Don't, she whispered, stepping forward once more. Just don't shove me away. You're not the only one who can take risks. The tension hung heavy, a promise and a challenge. Ayo, still engulfed by concerns deeper than shadows, fought against the connection. But in her warmth, he could feel the constraints start to loosen, and he surrendered to a thought hanging in the air as threatening as the storm. It's not just your heart I'd be putting at risk. It's everything. Scene 55. The distress call. The sky loomed heavy over Khalilah Raye as the aroma of fresh rain lightly dampened the earth, a fusion of petrichor and blooming jasmine swirling around the vibrant corners of her office. The golden hour illuminated the cityscape beyond her floor-to-ceiling windows, casting glimmers of hope against a backdrop of clouds. Yet, the warmth did little to ease the chill creeping down her spine, an instinctual warning that something was terribly off. Khalilah's phone buzzed harshly on her mahogany desk, a stark interruption to her careful thoughts. As she glanced down, she recognized Ayo's number, her heart thudding in her chest as she swiped to answer. Ayo, she said, her voice fragile with anticipation. Khalilah, I need you. His tone was raw, urgent, a sharp dagger cutting through the air. What's happened? Where are you? She stood, the chair rolling back, forgotten amid the gravity in his voice. Just meet me at the warehouse on 5th, please. There's no time. The line went dead, leaving Khalilah in suffocating silence. She raced to grab her jacket, heart racing faster than her feet could carry her. The sharp scent of mint from her essential oil diffuser mixed with the metallic tang of the impending storm, creating a sensory tapestry that felt both grounding and unsettling. Each hurried breath filled her lungs with a cocktail of fear and fascination, and as she stepped out into the bustling street, her mind whirled with unanswered questions. The world transformed into a blur as she navigated the city, the sound of honking horns and distant chatter fading into a background score against her frantic thoughts. Why had Ayo sounded so desperate? What danger lurked at the warehouse, cloaked in the shadows of his already complicated life? Her heart ached at the thought of him in peril, and as she approached the cold, gray structure of the warehouse, swirling clouds darkened overhead, setting a somber stage for the emotional confrontation to come. She pushed through the heavy door, the scent of oil and damp concrete wafting up to greet her as she squinted into the flickering light. Ayo? Her voice bounced off the vast concrete walls, coming back to her like a whisper of doubt. From the darkness he emerged, tall and broad. He seemed more formidable than ever, his shirt slick against his skin, glistening under the sparse lights. The tension in his posture screamed that something was amiss. "Khalilah, you shouldn't have come," he said, stepping closer. The flicker of vulnerability in his eyes softened her resolve, but fury flared just beneath the surface. "And yet, here I am. You sounded like—" "I know what I sounded like," Ayo interjected, clenching his jaw. "But you don't belong here. This is dangerous." Khalilah crossed her arms defiantly, taking in his handsome features, layered beneath the weight of their unspoken past. "Are you kidding me? You're the one constantly putting yourself in these situations. You need help sometimes." "Admitting I need help means exposing my weaknesses. There's a lot on the line, Khalilah," he countered, his tone sharp enough to slice through tension. "Right, let's talk truth, Ayo. What's really at stake here? Yourself? Your empire?" She stepped closer, the rawness in her voice trembling like a taut wire. "Or is it that you think I'm too fragile to handle it? To be a part of your world?" He paused, the air thickening between them. "You need to know the truth. This is dangerous, not just for you, but for everyone you care about." "What do you think I'm doing?" "I'm trying to care. Don't push me away, Ayo." Her voice quavered, shoulders hunched as she fought to hold back the tide of emotion. In a heartbeat, he closed the distance, his fingertips brushing against the soft skin of her arm. "Khalilah, we're tangled in this mess together. How can you not see that?" Her breath caught, heat blossoming between them, a pulsating reminder of everything unsaid yet desperately felt. "Because I don't want you to get hurt." His eyes blazed with intensity, each word laced with a fierce protectiveness, a contradiction of emotions too complicated to unravel in this moment. "Then let me help you," she insisted, gazing deeply into those troubled eyes where fear danced alongside longing. They hovered there, lost in a thick silence that held promise and peril in equal measure. Ayo's fingers lingered longer on her skin, a silent understanding forging a path forward, even as the shadows loomed closer. "Fine," he finally said, the resolve uncoiling slightly as he exhaled sharply. "Just promise me you'll be careful." "Only if you promise not to keep pushing me away," she shot back, a smirk tugging at the corners of her mouth amidst the storm brewing outside. "Deal. But don't think this makes you my partner in crime," he replied, an amused glint threading through his tumultuous gaze. "Oh, sweetheart, I know you secretly love the company." Khalilah grinned, and for a moment the weight of the world lifted, leaving only the electric tension hovering between them. Yet even as they stood poised on this precipice of emotions and choices, the darkness outside called them back to reality. Scene 56, an unexpected rescue. Khalilah Raye stood in the sun-drenched remnants of the old warehouse, her heart racing. Dust motes danced in the golden rays filtering through broken windows, the air thick with a musty scent that mixed with the faint tease of something metallic. She tightened her grip on the clipboard, braced herself, and stepped deeper inside, the stubborn wood creaking under her weight. Each step echoed with the gravity of her mission. Today was not just about collecting notes, it was about confronting Ayo. In the far corner, Ayo Kanala's figure was shrouded in shadows, his brow furrowed as he studied a scattering of documents on the worn table. The bluish hue cast by the flickering overhead bulb highlighted the angles of his face, leaving a sheen of contemplation across his brow. He was utterly engrossed, his jaw clenched, the tension radiating like heat from a flame. "Ayo?" Khalilah ventured softly, her voice barely above a whisper, laced with a mix of determination and uncertainty. His head snapped up, those deep brown eyes widening slightly before narrowing with a spark, an unfathomable mix of surprise and apprehension. "What are you doing here, Khalilah?" he demanded, rising from his chair and stepping towards her. The heat of his presence enveloped her, sending a cascade of nervous energy down her spine. "I came to see how you were," she replied, taking a few steps closer, her resolve flickering like the overhead light. "You've been distant. I thought maybe you could use some company." Ayo studied her for a long moment, his expression inscrutable. Then a flicker of amusement danced in his eyes, though it was quickly swallowed by the weight of his responsibilities. "Company? or reconnaissance for that profile you're meant to write. Khalilah frowned, a sudden pang of anger unfurling in her chest. Is that all I am to you, Ayo? Just a means to an end? He stepped closer, closing the gap between them, his larger frame overshadowing her smaller one. You know it's not like that, he murmured, yet his voice carried the weight of an unspoken truth. But I will not let you become collateral damage. Collateral damage? She scoffed, throwing her hands up in frustration. That's not your decision to make for me. I don't want to just stand on the sidelines or be swept away in your world. Your life isn't at risk when I'm around. His jaw tightened again, and Khalilah noticed the way his nostrils flared, a mere hint of vulnerability masking the rugged authority he exuded. Let me protect you. Khalilah's heart swelled, but the momentary warmth was tinged with a thrill of rebellion. She inhaled deeply, the musty air heavy with past secrets. I'm not some damsel, Ayo. I can handle myself. I want to be part of this, your world. I will help you. Ayo's gaze softened, his protective instincts mixed with something deeper. This isn't like those empty boardrooms you're used to, Khalilah. There are darker forces at play. I cannot let you get hurt. Silence fell between them, thick and charged. It was a silence ripe with possibilities, electric currents weaving their bodies closer, breathing the same air. A moment stretched into eternity, a soft trap of unspoken emotions that began to warp their realities. Then, in a sudden burst of emotion, she took a step nearer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Then let me in, Ayo. I need to know, need to be a part of you, of this. Her sincerity rang loud and clear. Without breaking eye contact, he moved forward, his hands capturing her wrists, his palms warm and grounding against the cool air. Khalilah, he began, but the weight of their shared experiences tangled around them like vines, the space between buzzing with unspoken longing. Ayo. Her voice barely registered above a breath, but his grip tightened reassuringly. He stepped closer still, the world outside fading into nothingness. Just promise me you'll be careful, he murmured, the words rasping slightly from his throat, a tension deepening in his gaze as he leaned just inches away from her face, feeling that shared exhalation, each breath a tether to something far beyond mere saving. She could see the worry etched on his face, the fierce care he poured into her protection, but there was something wild in those depths, a need to unveil the man behind the crime lord facade. I'll always be careful, as long as you're by my side, she replied, her voice a fragile thread of hope, sweetness, and defiance, a promise wrapped in an unspoken commitment. In that moment, time held its breath, suspended in the warmth of vulnerability, as they teetered on the edge of something beautifully dangerous. Khalilah moved first, closing the distance between them. He responded, both of them leaning into the current, pulling them closer, hearts racing, shy yet unraveled. In the frayed silence, their fears and desires collided, the stirring realization that together they were no longer just shadows, but something more vivid, something alive. Scene 57. A kiss in the dark. The street was slick with rain, glistening under the flickering orange glow of the street lamp. Puddles formed little lakes as the thunder rumbled, echoing Khalilah's chaotic thoughts. She peered through the swirling mist, tension coiling tightly in her chest. Ayo's unexpected presence loomed nearby, his posture both relaxed and unyielding, like a sentinel in a storm. Although they had made it through the evening's earlier chaos, anxiety pulsed between them, as tangible as the damp evening air. Ayo, I can't work like this, Khalilah exclaimed, her voice rising sharply above the hum of the rain. She rubbed her temples, frustration boiling over. You're playing with fire, and I can't keep getting burned. Are we partners or pawns in this game? Ayo stepped closer, the warmth of his body radiating through the cold air. The storm swirled around them, adding a sense of urgency to their conversation. You think I would let anything happen to you? I'm trying to protect you. Khalilah shook her head, passion igniting in her brown eyes, vivid against the stormy backdrop. Protect me? By keeping secrets? You're inviting trouble right to my doorstep. I'm not just some pretty face to shield from danger. Then stop acting like it. Ayo's voice was firm, but beneath the surface swirled a raw urgency. He moved closer, until the air between them crackled with such intensity that it felt charged with electricity. You think I want to hide you away? I care about you more than I can say. Oh, so it's just caring now? She crossed her arms defiantly. What about trust? What about honesty? A lightning bolt cracked overhead, illuminating the undeniable vulnerability etched across Ayo's face. He softened, eyes searching hers like a man lost at sea, seeking safe harbor. Trust takes time, Khalilah. I didn't plan for any of this. I didn't plan to feel this way. With the storm's fury all around them, Khalilah felt her defenses slip. A rush of emotions flooded through her, urging her forward. Feel what? The thrill of danger? The allure of secrets? Or is it just me? Ayo inhaled sharply, shutting his eyes for a brief moment as the rain drummed overhead, mirroring the rhythm of their hearts. You don't understand how difficult it is for me to keep. Keeping things from me, she interrupted, her voice trembling with frustration and something deeper. Tell me, Ayo, what would it take for you to let me in, to really trust me? Before he could answer, a clap of thunder shook the air, but the sound nearly drowned out the rush of water that pooled around their feet. Khalilah could see the shift in him, the undercurrent of tension breaking as he stepped forward again, reaching out to steady her shoulders with a gentleness that felt entirely at odds with their argument. It would take everything, he confessed, his voice dropping, becoming low and earnest. It would take all of me, and I don't know if I can give you that. For a moment, both of them stood there, surrounded by the storm, their breaths mingling in the charged air, unsure of their next steps, but achingly aware of each battleground they had fought. Then, in an impulsive rush that surprised even them both, Ayo closed the distance between them, drawing her against him. The world around them fell away as he leaned down, brushing his lips against hers. The kiss was fierce, igniting an undeniable spark that lit up the dark corners of their hearts. Khalilah melted against him, her resentment slipping away like rainwater down a storm drain. The warmth of Ayo, a condom of protection and intensity, wrapped around her, and all her fears dripped away in that moment of connection. Pulling back slightly, they locked eyes, breaths mingling in the tumult. We just might save each other, he murmured, his voice rough yet tender. And it was in that kiss, in that shared moment filled with chaos and exhaustion, that they found an unbreakable tether, a promise wrapped in the storm of emotions swirling around them. A promise they both desperately needed in a world filled with darkness. Scene 58. Danger bruise, Ayo's brow furrowed as he leaned against the polished bar of his intimate lounge, a faint hum of conversation and soft jazz enveloping them like a warm embrace. He surveyed the room, fingers toying with the rim of his glass. What if I told you that trust is a luxury we can't afford? He asked, his eyes dark and intense, pinning Khalilah in place. Khalilah, seated across from him, felt the weight of his words settle in her chest. She straightened, her spine aligning with her unyielding confidence, though the soft clinking of glasses around them seemed to fade into a chilling silence just for them. That's a pretty cynical view, Ayo. Don't you think there's room for at least some trust? His jaw clenched momentarily, a sign of the battle inside him. Not in my world. He leaned closer, the scent of cedarwood and something primal filling the air between them. Not when people are willing to use whatever dirt they have against you. The edges of his mouth tightened, the tension palpable, like a tightrope stretched over an abyss. Khalilah swallowed, her heart racing. What are you trying to say? Her voice tapered off into the hushed atmosphere of the bar, a swirl of confusion and curiosity. She could see the vulnerability hidden beneath his bravado, but also the protective walls he'd built so high. Before Ayo could respond, the entrance door swung open, and a gust of cool evening air swept through, causing a shiver to race down Khalilah's spine. The laughter and light of the bar dimmed as a tall figure stepped inside. A hooded jacket obscured the newcomer's face, but a sly smirk glanced off the bright stage lights. "Who's that?" Khalilah whispered, glancing toward Ayo, whose tension shifted. "Trouble," he replied, his voice low and thick with intent. The atmosphere changed, cracking like ice beneath heading feet, as Ayo's cool demeanor morphed into something fierce and alarming. "Are you expecting anyone?" Khalilah asked, her instincts flaring, a cocktail of concern and interest swirling in her gut. "Not exactly." Ayo's hand shifted to her knee, his touch somehow calming and electrifying at once. His presence consumed her, but her mind wrestled with the unknowingness of it all. "Stay close." As the figure approached, they threw back the hood, revealing a woman with striking green eyes and a burning smile that could ignite dry kindling. "Ayo," she called, her voice dripping with an arrogance that seemed out of place in the cozy bar. "Miss me?" Ayo's expression hardened, and Khalilah felt the heat rise in her cheeks as she shifted uncomfortably on her stool. "What are you doing here, Tanya?" His voice was clipped, the tension in the air tangible, ready to snap. Tanya stepped closer, a predatory grin playing on her lips. "Just checking in on my favorite crime boss. You've been busy." She glanced at Khalilah, eyes surveying her like a hawk. "Thought I'd see what kind of trouble my old pal has gotten himself into, and who this gem is." Khalilah's stomach churned at the innuendo, feeling like she was suddenly thrust into an arena. "I'm not trouble," she said, her voice firm but quieter than she intended. Ayo laughed, a sound incredulous and void of warmth. "Trouble comes in all shapes and sizes." He stood, untangling himself from the bar, shifting protectively toward Khalilah. "And know this, you don't belong here." Tanya stepped forward, her demeanor flirtatious yet threatening. "What's she to you? You always have time for old friends, don't you?" Khalilah bit back a comment, focusing instead on Ayo. His stance was resolute, and yet she could sense the threads of conflict weaving through him, tugging at emotions beneath the surface. "Friends, Tanya, don't frag each other. You need to leave." Ayo's voice lowered, his dark eyes unwavering. The air pulsated around them, filled with unsaid words and stubborn breaths, as Tanya shrugged and winked. "Suit yourself. But remember, Ayo, shadows can't protect you forever." As she turned to leave, Khalilah felt a shiver, both of intrigue and apprehension. Ayo glanced at her, an unspoken challenge hanging in the air. "You're safe with me," he assured softly, his eyes warming, but still shadowed with intent. Khalilah caught her breath, the electric tension crackling between them. "And what about your secrets?" she asked, her gaze unwavering. "How can I trust you?" Ayo stepped closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Because not all secrets are meant to hurt. Some are meant to protect." He raised an eyebrow, a flicker of something between them igniting like sparks meeting dry hay. "Can you handle that?" Khalilah's heart raced as the delicate balance of danger and desire danced between them, leaving them suspended in a moment that felt unmistakably inevitable. "I'm starting to wonder," she whispered, a hint of challenge lighting her eyes. The night stretched before them, fraught with uncertainty and unbridled desire, as danger loomed at the edges, a tempest brewing just beyond their fragile defenses. Scene 59. Plans gone awry. In the dusky remnants of a late afternoon, Raye stood at Ayo Kanala's grand terrace, framed by the city's skyline. The urban orchestra of honking horns and distant sirens mingled with the subtle scent of blooming jasmine wafting through the air. She absent-mindedly twirled one of the delicate petals between her fingers, feelings of apprehension swelling within her. Ayo had promised her a future, a clear path away from chaos, but now it felt like everything hung on the edge of a knife. The sound of his footsteps behind her sent a shiver up her spine. Khalilah turned, the sunlight catching the regal contours of Ayo's face. He carried an intensity that both comforted and unnerved her. He approached, his expression cloaked in a mixture of determination and protectiveness. "We need to talk," he stated, his voice steady but laced with an underlying tension. Khalilah met his gaze and tried to mask her mounting anxiety. "About the presentation or the plans for the foundation?" she inquired, her voice dipping into a hopeful melody, a sharp contrast to the dread simmering underneath. "It's more urgent than that." He paused, his dark eyes narrowing momentarily, as if scanning for threats even in the stillness. "There are complications. Something's brewing on the streets." Khalilah's heart raced. "As in?" She bit her lip, the taste of uncertainty bitter on her tongue. "Gang violence." Ayo's tone shifted to a whisper, urgent but focused. "I can't let you walk into that." "What do you mean?" she asked, her pulse quickening. The jasmine's perfume mixed oddly with the tension thickening in the air. "We have to change our plans," he said, his voice resolute. "It's not safe for you to be in public right now." Khalilah's brows knitted together. "I can't just hide away, Ayo. It's my career, my integrity. If I back out now, everything crumbles." She crossed her arms, a defensive gesture as she rallied against the turmoil threatening to swallow her confidence. Ayo stepped closer, his presence a comforting shield. "You think I care about your career more than your safety?" Khalilah looked away, her breath hitching. You're talking about me like I'm some prize to protect. I choose to stand by you in this mess. Don't treat me like a damsel, she shot back, a spark of defiance igniting her indignation. This isn't about treating you as anything, Khalilah. You don't see the big picture. His frustration flared, but quickly turned into concern. I cannot lose you. Is that what this is about? Fear? She stepped back, clenching the flower petal until it crumpled in her palm. You can't dictate my life out of fear. Ayo's jaw tightened, the air around them thickening with unspoken words. Then what, Khalilah? You want to wade into chaos like it's a walk in the park? Sometimes chaos is where we find ourselves, she snapped, only to soften immediately as she searched his eyes. Ayo, I'm just trying to make sense of this thing between us. The honesty of her confession hung there, frail like the broken petal she held. Ayo's expression ebbed from frustration to something deeper, a flicker of vulnerability. You're right, I'm scared, he admitted, his voice low, reverberating with a sincerity that caught her off guard. Scared of what, Ayo? She dared, anxious to peel back the layers resting heavy between them. Of losing you to a world that will never care about you the way I do, he confessed, and though they stood amidst a potential storm, it felt strangely warm. His honesty washed over her, unraveling her own tightly wound fears. And if we lose everything, she whispered, her heart a mix of apprehension and fierce longing, then we rebuild even if it takes every ounce of me, Ayo vowed, his hand reaching for hers, pulling her closer. Before she could answer, the distant shattering of glass silenced her thoughts. Sirens pierced the night, screeching like a banshee, rattling the fortress of their moment. Ayo tensed, the protective instinct kicking into high gear. We need to go, Ayo said, his voice now steady yet laced with urgency. Wait, Khalilah protested, half laughing, half terrified. First you want to protect me from the world, now you want to duck and cover? Life's the ultimate hide and seek. You should know that by now, he smirked, a fleeting wit that melted the tension momentarily. Khalilah chuckled, even amidst the fear, savoring the connection that flared under the chaos. I guess we're playing for keeps then? Always, he replied, gripping her hand, the weight of unmeasured commitment veiling the clash of ambitions and desires as they prepared to leap into uncertain terrain together. Scene 60, Heart of the Matter. The soft golden light from the table lamp bathed the room in a warm glow, casting flickering shadows on the walls. Ayo leaned back against the plush leather sofa, his deep-set eyes fixed intently on Khalilah, who sat across from him, her fingers nervously tracing the rim of her wineglass. They had ventured into unknown territory, a place where past traumas intertwined with future desires. Do you think our pasts define us? Ayo broke the silence, the question lingering in the air like an unspoken truth. His voice was smooth, yet the weight of his inquiry hung between them, a bridge they both hesitated to cross. Khalilah bit her lip, instantly regretting her choice to indulge in the rich, velvety syrah that night. I think they inform us, she replied slowly, meeting his gaze, but they shouldn't have to dictate our future. Her response was deliberate, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Ayo's lips curved into a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Like wearing a backpack loaded with rocks, you can choose to shed it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. His hands shifted, resting on his knees, reflecting the weight he spoke of. She contemplated his words, allowing silence to fill the void. It felt heavy, thick enough to cut. The intensity of his gaze urged her to delve deeper, to unearth thoughts she had buried under layers of ambition and self-doubt. And what about you? What do you carry? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, yet it sliced through the silence. He shifted, a flicker of something vulnerability, perhaps passing over his features. A lot of darkness. Secrets I've kept to protect those I care about, but sometimes it feels like I'm just adding more weight. He leaned forward, bracing his elbows on his thighs, intent and focused. It gets exhausting, you know? Khalilah nodded, her chest tightening as she considered the implications of those secrets. Ayo was a paradox. His strength drew her in, while the shadows warned her to steer clear. But you're here, talking about it, she encouraged gently. That means something, doesn't it? Or maybe I'm just a fool trying to connect the dots and finding nothing but a jigsaw of my own making. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. The humor was a thinly veiled mask, but it gave life to the tension. Fools don't usually taste wine this exquisite, Khalilah teased, a smile tugging at her lips, and Ayo allowed himself a full grin, the kind that made his eyes shine. The shift in mood was palpable, and the air felt lighter, and yet charged. But seriously, she said, her tone turning earnest, if we let our past dictate our futures, we'll always be trapped, Ayo. Do you want to be trapped? Each word was carefully chosen, and she could see the internal conflict raging within him. No, he said too quickly, then sighed, leaning back, his brow furrowing in thought. But it's not as easy as just letting go. What if you lose everything in the process? You mean everything you've built? You do it for them? She countered gently, her heart racing, aching for him to understand. But what about you? What do you really want? A long pause stretched between them, heavy with unspoken fears. Khalilah's heart pounded in her chest, resonating against the stillness of the room, waiting for Ayo to reveal his truth, his desires that lay just beneath the surface. The truth, Ayo finally said, his voice low and tentative. I want to save the ones I love. You think love conquers all. What if it doesn't? What if it just complicates everything more than it already is? It can, but isn't that the beauty of it? Khalilah's eyes sparkled with an earnest light, brimming with hope. Every time there's a fear, there's also a chance for something incredible. The tension in Ayo's shoulders shifted slightly, as if the possibility of moving forward had cracked open a door just wide enough for a ray of warmth to seep inside. Incredible, huh? Is that what you want, Khalilah? Incredible? What if I do? She questioned, her voice a soft challenge against the low hum in the room. She leaned closer, where the space between them crackled with energy, with possibilities. What if I want you? Then it's even more dangerous, he countered, but the resonance in his voice betrayed a flutter of excitement, drawing her nearer. Khalilah held his gaze, aware that this moment could reshape everything. Maybe danger is the path to our desires, she whispered. In the thick air, filled with tension and anticipation, their lips inched closer, the delicate dance of hesitation hanging in the balance of their uncharted feelings. Scene 61, Bitter Truths. Ayo stood in the dim light of the kitchen, the aroma of garlic and rosemary wafting from the sauté pan as he stirred, his back turned, oblivious to the invisible chasm growing behind him. The steady hiss of the oil seemed to taunt him, a reminder that even the simplest tasks could hold the weight of the universe. Khalilah leaned against the doorframe, her arms crossed, watching the man whose life had unraveled hers, yet had also breathed renewal into her weary spirit. Ayo. Khalilah's voice was softer than she intended, carrying a vulnerability that made the air around them thick. She hated feeling exposed, but the urge to bridge that gap was stronger than her instinct to guard her heart. He turned slightly, his eyes flickering with a mixture of warmth and guardedness, as if he had already braced himself for the storm she unknowingly threatened. Yes, he added another sprig of rosemary, its pungent fragrance mingling with the earthy scent of the garlic. Khalilah pushed off the frame, stepping closer, the sound of his cooking replaced by the fragile rhythm of their unspoken truths. I was thinking about what you said the other night, about trusting each other. It made me wonder about the things you still keep from me. Ayo's expression shifted, the warmth cooling into the solid armor he wore. He turned fully to face her, the spatula dangling loosely from his fingers as he searched her gaze for signs of accusation, or perhaps plea. Some things are better left unsaid, he replied. The weight of his words lingered in the air, heavy as the bronze cookware that lay scattered on the marbled counter. Are they? She folded her arms tighter, apprehension gnawing at her resolve. You know my life is a mess, Ayo. I'm standing on the brink of losing everything. All I have left is this job, this chance to be someone. And you're tangled in all of it. I need to understand where you stand. His dark eyes flared with something that could have been anguish, or perhaps just the flickering shadow of his past clawing its way back to the surface. I didn't come from a pretty place, Khalilah. This business I run, it wasn't built on clean hands or good intentions. A low chuckle escaped her lips, a bitter sound that bounced off the tiled walls. You think I don't know that? You've made that painfully clear. But what did I expect? A fairy tale from a kingpin. I get it. You're the villain in my story, and yet Here I am, scribbling down the chapters. I'm trying to protect you, he insisted, his voice edged with urgency. There are forces at play that you can't comprehend. This life, it's not something you can just compartmentalize. It will bleed into your every waking moment. Khalilah felt a pang in her chest, not from fear, but from an unexpected yearning for the connection that danger seemed to tether them with. Then let me choose, Ayo. You don't get to dictate my life like I'm one of your contracts. I'll take the risk if it means being with you. For a moment, the space between them crackled, charged with unacknowledged need, the air too alive to ignore. Ayo stepped closer, the heat radiating from him wrapping around her like a soft blanket, merging with the savory scent swirling in the air. Khalilah, don't make me a choice, Ayo. If I have to choose between ambition and the happiness I find with you, it will leave me hollow. I need you to know that. She reached out, her fingertips grazing the back of his hand, a soft plea for understanding rather than a demand for answers. The room seemed to shrink around them, the world swirling in hues of fragility and urgency. Ayo held her gaze, searching for the brave woman beneath the weight of her fear. You have no idea how much it breaks me to know what you're sacrificing. Because you think I'm incapable? She shot back, embers of defiance sparking in her eyes. What if I'm not? What if this is a chance to reclaim my life? You know what I was willing to lose to come here, to be near you. Her words hung between them, thick with possibility, raw and yearning. Khalilah saw in his eyes a flicker of something he couldn't cover, an acknowledgement of her strength that countered the shadows of his past. You're stronger than you realize, Khalilah, he said softly, the rough edges of his voice smoothing out. Before she could respond, Ayo closed the space between them, cupping her face in his hands, his warmth igniting the pulsing connection that had been building just beneath their fragile layers. In that charged moment, as she looked into the abyss of his soul, she understood both their fears were intertwined. Then let me help you fight, he whispered, their breaths mingling as a storm of emotions swirled around them. Let's unravel this together. The weight of their unspoken confessions hung in the air, laced with a tension that bordered on tender peril as they gauged the depth of each other's sincerity. Scene 62, Injury and Care. The cool air of the warehouse hung thick with tension, broken only by the sound of Ayo's exerted breaths. The encounter had spiraled out of control. Rival factions knew his whereabouts, and he'd walked straight into the lion's den. Now he stood leaning against a rusted support beam, pressing his palm to a wound in his side. Blood seeped through his fingers, a stark reminder of the danger that accompanied him, a peril that Khalilah was yet to understand. Khalilah burst through the door, her breath catching as her eyes landed on Ayo. The sight of him, stooped and damaged, sent her heart racing. Ayo, she cried, her voice slicing through the clamor of chaos that echoed around them. I'm fine, he grunted, although the strained pitch of his voice betrayed him. Fine? She laughed bitterly, disbelief dancing in her tone. Each step she took hesitated for a moment, then quickened as she closed the distance between them. You're bleeding like a stuck pig. You don't look fine at all. Her hands, instinctively tender, reached towards him. Ayo flinched back slightly, not from fear, but from an involuntary instinct to shield himself. It's not as bad as it looks, he insisted, teeth gritted, trying to exude confidence despite the sharp pain lancing through his side. Not bad? Khalilah's voice heightened, filled with frustration. You need medical attention. Now! She pressed her palm against his arm, and beneath his shirt, he felt the heat of her touch radiate through him. Something tightened in his chest, not just from the pain. You shouldn't be here, Khalilah. This life is dangerous, he murmured, the weight of his words hanging in the air like fog. He locked eyes with her, searching for a depth of understanding that might push her back towards safety. Trust me, I'm not going anywhere, she shot back, a mixture of resolve and defiance in her stance. There was a flicker of something vulnerable in her expression that caught him off guard. She took a deep breath, then gestured to the nearby table littered with tools and first aid supplies. Sit down, let me help you. Ayo hesitated, his instincts for self-preservation simmering against a new, unwelcome warmth. I can handle this. Got shot, she reminded him, her voice softening as she urged him again. You can handle that. With a resigned sigh, his body slumped against the table, and he allowed her to take charge. She moved with a grace that belied the chaos around them, her fingers deftly peeling away the fabric of his shirt to assess the damage. The sight of red against the sharp lines of his skin drew a pained grunt from him, but Khalilah's gaze remained focused, meticulous. "It's not the end of the world," he joked lightly, attempting to distract from the grim reality they faced.